Welcome, everybody, to our second California UDL Network meeting of the year. My name is Pam Tuppy, and I am your facilitator today with Fred Cochran. And we are super excited to have you here today. So I'm just going to go ahead and click through some of our welcoming slides here, and then we'll do an a welcoming activity, and then we'll get right into our agenda for the day. So just by way of a roll call, would you go ahead and add your name, county office, district, or school into the chat box? And we would just love to welcome everybody who is here today. So let's go ahead and take a minute to do that. Welcome, everybody.
Great to see so many people.
Yeah, so many
Great.
familiar names and faces.
Yes. Hi, James. Wow, this is great.
Okay, so as you are doing that, I'm going to go ahead and give you a minute to just add your name and county office or school district to the chat box if you haven't done so already. And I just want to again introduce ourselves. Our facilitators for today are myself and Fred. I'm from the Orange County Department of Education, where I am a coordinator of inclusive instructional practices. And Fred, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Fred Cochran, and I'm a coordinator with continuous improvement and support at San Joaquin County Office of Education.
We are recording this, so if you have colleagues that are missing it, they can refer back to the content at any time. And a little bit later, we'll show you where our new YouTube channel is, where you can see all of these recordings in one place. So I'm going to go ahead and just mention our norms for today, and then Fred's going to take us through a welcoming activity. Just remember to keep yourself muted, but comment or ask questions in the chat. We will be recording all of these today's meeting, and we'll place it in our shared Google Drive, which we'll show you a little bit later. So we are excited to be working with you. So Fred, take it away.
You know, it's a lot of fun putting together optimistic openings. And so what got me going the other day was just thinking about all the different playlists that I have and different genres of music that I love. And I don't know about you, but music always boosts my mood. And of course, we're always looking at ways to reduce the stress and to just kind of get out of our mess that we have to deal with sometimes and just kind of dance or sing or whatever you like to do. So thinking about that, what's your genre of music that alters your mood? Is it look at our characters here, they're just having so much fun. So what's your genre? Go ahead and enter in the chat, please. So much fun to read these. Country, the 80s, classic rock, 90s hip hop, reggae. No one genre. It's pretty impossible not to dance to Big Man. Okay. Classical, good. Hip hop, everything. Sam Cooke, happy music. Great. Hip hop. So many genres, right? So many choices, so many, it's very UDL, right? You can choose what really does work for you. And that's the nice thing about having choice. So yeah, lots of, oh my gosh, look at all this. Sam Cooke again, many genres. Good. Well, I hope you think about that when you are driving home tonight or have time to walk the dog. Think about a favorite song or something that just lifts your spirits and do that. Okay. So thank you for doing that. And of course, Pam was mentioning that we keep all of our stuff in our Google folder. So you'll have access to this folder as well. And here we store resources, and something new that we're doing is we now have a YouTube channel where you can go to and watch the recordings of our California UDL Network calls. So that's exciting. So we thank Sung Park from Santa Clara County Office of Ed Inclusion Collaborative, got that all set up for us. So we are adding that in as one of our features of the California UDL Coalition that you've probably been hearing about a lot from us. So take an opportunity to share those videos and give us feedback. Pam's pulling up the folder where we keep our trainings and events here. So we're excited to share that information with you. And if you have information you want to share with us, please keep that line open so that we can continuously add more information. We have on the agenda coming up, May 9th will be our last UDL California Network call. So be sure to mark your calendars for that. Okay, so our learning outcomes have not changed since 2018 when we had our first California UDL call. Our first outcome was intended to share best practices. And I think we've done a pretty good job with that. And we've invited county offices, educators, from all throughout the state and even beyond that join us for our calls and share best practices. But our second outcome is to capitalize on the expertise from participants that do support implementation efforts. So that is really been an important part of our network calls, is to really listen to and watch and learn from all of our friends out in the state that are doing all this great work. So today, it's my pleasure to introduce our presenters from Nevada. Is it Nevada County Office of Superintendent? Is it?
It's Office of Education or Superintendent of Schools, sorry.
Superintendent of Schools, great. And their presentation today is titled Outcomes Through Teacher-Led Observation, Inquiry, and Implementation. We have Andrea Marks, Carrie Ferraro, and who else from your team is on board today?
Megan Salter.
And Megan Salter. So we're going to turn this over to the wonderful team from Nevada, and they're going to present their story of UDL implementation. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Andrea Marks. I'm the Director of Curriculum Instruction and Accountability for Nevada County Superintendent of Schools, and I'm here with my team today. We're really excited to be here to share with you about some work that we've been doing around implementation of UDL in our county. So thank you, Fred, Rhonda, and Pam for inviting us to be here today. Carrie's driving for me. We weren't able to utilize the new feature of operating our own slides, so bear with us. I'd like to introduce our team. This is our core instructional coaching team here at the county office. And we are the creators of this project and got it rolling 5 years ago, and excited again to talk to you about the progress that we've made today. And we wouldn't be where we are today without our professional learning partnerships. We started as a core group that was involved in a project called Instructional Leadership Corps that was funded through the California Teachers Association and Stanford Center for Opportunity Policy and Education. And it was based on the premise that who best to teach teachers than teachers themselves. And then also we are partnering with LessonCast, which we will talk about soon. The project principles of the Instructional Leadership Corps outlined here on this slide: use capacity to grow capacity, engage in cross-role collaboration, establish institutional partnerships, develop knowledge and skills through continuous improvement approach, and align with local initiatives. So all of those principles are embedded in our project, but we have some core goals that we are focused on here. So mainly we want to strengthen understanding and implementation of UDL within our LEAs, We're utilizing continuous improvement inquiry cycles. We're planning lessons. Teachers are teaching the lessons. Other teachers are observing the lessons, collecting and debriefing on data they're collecting from observing what the students are doing and saying. And then they're revising their lessons based on this data that they're collecting. And then finally, our project goal is to build capacity in teacher leaders. I'm going to go into talking to you about the project process. Currently in year 5, we are at 65 teachers. We grew from our first year at 13 to 65 currently. And we're very excited about moving forward into our 6th year. Our project is based on these evidence-based practices that come basically from these books. Opening Doors to Equity by Tanya Ward Singer gave us the protocols that we use in the process when our teachers are doing the observations. Megan's going to go deeper into that. Each participant in the project receives a UDL Now book to just guide their learning and their process. And then we utilize Learning to Improve to remind us about the continuous improvement approach that we want to embed in all of the work that we do. In our first year, we had some key organizational activities. One is that we knew a little bit about UDL, but we recognized that we certainly were not experts in it. And so we recruited, well, actually, we reached out to CAST and they introduced us to Nicole Tucker-Smith, who is phenomenal. I cannot recommend her highly enough. She's been an amazing partner in this journey for us. And so she is the person that provides really the professional learning to teachers that are entering the project around the basics of UDL. And then we also maximized our instructional coaching team to provide support to the teachers. And then again, we implemented the use of inquiry cycles as we tried out UDL strategies. Many of you are probably familiar with this graphic, and this goes back to what I was describing earlier. We take our core group of teachers and we divide them into smaller cohorts of 6 to 8. And they come up with a problem of practice based on what they're interested in studying and learning about. And often, just a side note here, we find that many of them, as they enter the project, are after engaging students. They want to really focus on, how do I get my students more engaged? So we kind of chuckle about that because we recognize now that that's kind of a basic starting point. They have some questions for inquiry. Together, they design a lesson as a team. They do some research. We provide them with a tool called Goal Book that utilizes UDL strategies and gives them ideas for how to design their lessons. And then they go into the classroom. A teacher volunteers to be observed first. The other teachers watch, collect the data, and then they debrief that process, the data, and they act on it by designing their next lesson. And they go through this process 3 or 4 times during the school year. And again, Megan will go a little bit deeper into that.
So as Andrea mentioned, our protocols come from Opening Doors to Equity, and we put them in place for 3 main reasons. First, it's really important in our work. We want to model the evidence-based practices. Also, the structure of the project can be intimidating for teachers just joining. We're talking cross-county observations with other educators they may or may not know, inviting them into the classroom. So that sense of overwhelm, by having protocols and a structure and our participants know what to expect, that can reduce the anxiety that they're experiencing. And finally, we have an equity focus. So the fidelity to the protocols helps us to elevate every voice in the room and allow for participation from all of our members, because we really want to encourage them to be part of this process and value their own voices. So on an observation day, there are 3 main stages. If you go back one, Carrie, that shows the pre-lesson process. So 5 to 10 minutes before, 10 to 15 minutes before an observation, the cohort team will meet together. They review the problem of practice. They identify what sort of data might be helpful in addressing this problem of practice. What do they want to focus on? Also the logistics. What's the layout of the classroom? What area will they observe? Generally speaking, in a typical classroom with a typical sized cohort, each teacher will observe 4 to 6 students. So it's really going in depth on the details of those students instead of trying to survey the entire classroom. Also, the hosting teacher provides some context, because while it is a lesson that was designed by the group, the hosting teacher is the one who knows the classroom climate, the students, the flow of the unit that they're in. So they'll provide that information. Next, we roll into the observation itself. So as Andrea touched on, 2 key things are that this is non-evaluative and student-centered. So we really want to underscore the fact that this isn't an administrator coming into the classroom to decide how good the teacher is. We want it to be a safe place where they can experiment and implement strategies, learn from trial and error. So the notes are focused on description rather than judgment. We just record what we see. And over the 5 years, certain things have risen to the top in terms of effectiveness for our debrief. So student dialogue, actually recording specifically what students say, the timing of the lesson, the teacher gives instructions and 2 minutes later, here's what's happening, or 30 seconds after, here's how the students are responding. Also the numbers of students. So if I'm watching a group of 5, I might say, 5 out of 5 completed the graphic organizer, 3 out of 5 referenced the sentence frames. All of those data points become really important in our debrief. And you have a template that we give our participants. We encourage them to take notes in whatever format best meets their learning styles. But after a lot of trial and error, this is what we've landed on. It is simple, but it pretty clearly connects what the teacher does with the impact it has on students. So on the left column, what the teacher says or does, what strategies they're using, and we can connect that in the right column to how students respond to those strategies. Once the observation is over, our teams move to a confidential location. Again, that trust and safety in the discussion. And we go through the protocols that we find in the opening doors to equity. So there's 5 to 10 minutes where individuals just review their notes and look for what rises to the top in terms of addressing that problem of practice. Each participant chooses 5, and each piece of evidence gets written on a separate sticky note. Once we have all of those, we go around in a circle and just read them. No judgment, no commentary, just what we saw in the lesson. The next step is to organize those into patterns or trends. What did we see? Just the things that make sense. What did we see over and over? What did we all recognize? What are the trends that we can emphasize? And we make generalizations from there. So all students, most, some, few, no, looking for the patterns that will inform our work. After we have the generalizations, we link cause and effect. So when we got those positive student outcomes that we were looking for, what were the steps and strategies in place to get us there? We want to connect the dots so that we can replicate those successes. We also want to look for what barriers still exist, whether it's ones we tried to address and it just didn't go the way we thought, or other things might have come up during the course of the lesson that we hadn't even realized were there. So all of those learnings go into the PDSA cycles so that teams address those going into their next lesson together. We have a few pictures of this in process. So you can see some of our teams going through that debrief process, which was pretty typical for our years 1 and 2, and since then has transformed a little bit, which Andrea will tell you more about.
So as I mentioned before, each year our project has grown in numbers, but also in breadth and depth. Year 2, we kind of just focused on growing our participants, but the big addition that year was we added 6 teacher leaders. As our project grows, we need leaders to lead the smaller cohorts and teams. And they are each backed, each of those teams is also backed by a coach. So the teacher leader is provided coaching and support as well. In year 3, again, we grew in numbers. And we were just about finished with our third year when the pandemic arrived. And we quickly put our heads together with Nicole Tucker Smith, and we went to an online community of practice, which started in March of 2020 and lasted through the next school year when we were not able to conduct our in-classroom observations. But there was a really, really important outcome from that. And it turned out that we were continuing to learn and grow with UDL, but we were also fostering a community of care during that very difficult time for teachers. And we learned through feedback later on that this truly was a lifeline for them to come together and talk about what their experience was like during distance learning and the kinds of things that were going on with their teaching, and how could UDL help remove those kinds of new barriers that teachers were being exposed to. So this just really touched our hearts that we were making that kind of a difference during such a difficult time. And Project 4, we eliminated the word pivot from our vocabularies because we were still, struggling with dealing with COVID and that kind of thing. But we were back to in-classroom observations. We decided to keep the online community of practice because it was a way to provide ongoing professional learning. And we do that 4 times a year between 3:30 and 5 o'clock. And what's amazing is we have about, most of our participants are there. Many are not being paid. And so it's just a really rich learning environment for them. The other question we started asking ourselves, being, in the world of continuous improvement, is, are we having impact? Are we making a difference? Are our teachers learning and growing? And how do we know this is effective and working? And so we implemented the CAST UDL progression rubric as a quantitative measure to determine this. And Carrie's going to talk about more in depth about that piece. We're in the 2nd year of utilizing that tool now. The other big thing that happened during our 4th year is we had 3 superintendents come to us and ask for support in full UDL implementation of our model in their district, which of course we said yes to. And fortunately, we have been able to, because we built capacity in our teacher leaders and they're embedded in some of those districts, we have been able to spread and scale the project that way. Why don't you skip this slide, Carrie, please? Thank you. So here is just a graphic that shows these 3 districts. They are on multiple paths. We do have a 2-year MOU outlining the scope of the work, and it's just a verbal commitment. We provide lots of resources and support, and then in turn, they're committed to providing release time and attending professional development, making time for our project in their district. And so one of the districts is actually doing a pretty good job of implementing our model with the observation piece, and they've built it into their course schedule. Megan has headed up a lot of that work. We have another district that has provided us with 1 teacher leader per grade level. And we're just about to start moving into the 2nd phase of like, okay, how can we build that out in your district and start bringing in other teachers. And the 3rd district, we actually have many of our teacher leaders from there. And that district is interesting because we have been able to connect that work to a lot of, they were in differentiated assistance for several years. And so we've been able to connect those dots for them and work on some of their objectives for differentiated assistance through this model. So we truly are part of the system of support as well. There's a picture of us implementing UDL district-wide. And so now we're in year 5. And it's funny because at the end of every year, I kind of think, oh, are people just going to get tired of this and it's just kind of sort of die off? But no, We are now up to 65 participants. We have another district. We don't have an MOU, but we are supporting them. They are also in differentiated assistance, so we're working with them to build out this model there. We are continuing with Nicole Tucker-Smith. Sorry. And then the other thing that's happening this year is that we have decided that we need, one of the things, because we started with Instructional Leadership Corps and it was sort of a grassroots effort, we've had a lot of administrator support, but it's more like they're cheerleaders from the sideline. And they have attended some minimal introduction to UDL, but what we're discovering is they need more support in identifying, what am I looking at when I walk into a classroom? I don't really know. And many of them are, we're finding that they might be doing an observation and there's collaborative conversation going on and there's a lot of energy and movement and noise, and that doesn't look normal to them. And so we are, Carrie, can you advance, please? Oh, here's just a graphic of our slide. I mean, our growth, I'm sorry. There's a kind of slide I'm looking for. Nope. Okay, I don't know where it went. Well, anyway, so, oh, I know where it is. I'm so sorry. I just got totally thrown off track. Could you back up, Carrie? So we're going to talk more about the administrators a little later on, but I thought it was now. Anyway, so we're very excited about the continued growth. And the next thing I want to talk to you about just quickly, there's a schedule that we have to show you. And this kind of, it's a very complex, when you're trying to verbalize what does this look like, how does it go? So the schedule is helpful because we provide the introduction at the beginning of the year to all the new people. We do a deeper dive with Nicole Tucker-Smith for the returning, and then you can see how the year plays out with the community of practices and the observations. So thank you for your patience with my stumbling there. And Carrie's going to talk to you about the progression rubric.
I really appreciate the time, and I will try to summarize very quickly for our team. It was wonderful, the anecdotal feedback that we were getting. We also had a question about what quantitative data can we get around implementation? And so we chose to focus on the reflection tool that Andrea mentioned earlier, the CAST UDL progression rubric. Working with our county coaches and our improvement science training, we decided, would this be a tool that we could use as a baseline measure to look at current levels of implementation and then re-examine our practice for strengths and weaknesses throughout the year, and then also use it as the post-assessment survey result to collectively examine what type of implementation do we see taking place in Nevada County. Our county coaching team did feel that there was one point that was missing on the 3-point scale developed by CAST, and that was for our very brand new participants that were just learning about the UDL pillars and checkpoints. We felt that there needed to be an additional category called developing for those that were even just learning the titles of these checkpoints for the very first time. So our team did embed that into the UDL progression rubric work, with the goal being twofold: to increase the level of confidence around the strategies being implemented. Our team was excited to see that not only did we receive more than 1 point of growth on overall level of confidence, our average scores shifted from between 1 to 4 to now typically between 2 to 5, meaning that implementation was happening on a weekly, if not daily, if not minute by minute basis for our participants. We also were excited to see that some of our lowest checkpoints, including our lowest, promoting understanding across the languages, were significantly impacted. We thought it was really important to elevate that the promoting understanding across languages was not just in support of our English learners, but also in support of acquiring academic vocabulary. We've included additional data slides for your team to review at your leisure, showing the checkpoint growth from our participants last year on every single UDL checkpoint. I'm very proud of this. We're continuing to use this work in this year's practice too. I think the anecdotal feedback is really essential too to the project. So we wanted to highlight some of the statewide recognition that we received, including the inclusive approach that we've taken around what Linda Darling-Hammond refers to as the most powerful form of professional learning. We also think that it was important to showcase our teacher leaders who are supporting this work. Without their access, without their buy-in, without their collaborative efforts, our project would simply not have gotten off the floor. So we've included a voices from the field, but we have some of our teacher leaders with us here today to share more. I'm going to skip quickly here. Sorry about the video. It's got a really cool intro if you're interested in it. We've also taken a closer look at what participants, our teachers, are saying about how their instructional design practice has changed as a result of this ongoing professional learning opportunity. It would really be nothing, though, if we weren't seeing the impact related to improved learning outcomes for all of our students. So with that said, one of the things we're excited about is to see this work moving forward. And I'm going to turn this back over to Andrea to share with you about what the future of our project holds.
Yeah. And Fred, I know we're running out of time here, so we'll be wrapping up shortly. This is what I was ready to share with you earlier. And so just to kind of, continue that, we are trying to build capacity in our administrators now. That's one of our focus. And one of the ways that we're trying to do that is we're testing out some learning walk tools. And we've been very careful about the rollout of this. We're utilizing our coaches and our teacher leaders to try out looking for UDL, which is something created by CAST, and Novak UDL observation form. We're not ready for it to turn into an official observation, but we want people to be able to understand, again, what am I looking for when I walk into this classroom? And so that's going to be a slow roll, but it is something that we're excited about. And then the other thing we added this year to get them more involved is we worked with UDL, with Nicole Tucker-Smith to develop an upcoming, what we're calling a share case celebration at the end of the project, where she is going to guide administrators in what to look for as cohorts share out their learning from the year. So we think that'll be a nice introduction for them. So thank you so much for giving us this time and space to share our project with you. We are, again, really excited about it because we know that many people are working hard on implementing UDL throughout their districts and counties and schools. We do have some teacher leaders here on the call with us and some of our other coaches. So we will take your questions as you have them, and we'll toss them to some of our other, our leaders.
Great. Thank you, Andrea and team. That was wonderful. I put in, yes, everyone. Thank you. Good job. So if you have questions for the team, you can add them to the chat. You can raise a hand. We have quite a few people on the call, so we have to kind of keep an eye on the gallery here. But one thing that I really appreciated listening to your presentation was about the support and the learning that administrators so greatly need to support UDL. And with new teachers coming into the workforce that have doing their TPAs all around universal design for learning, and to come into a school setting where not everybody is on the same page with UDL just kind of dampers all the passion that they have, because they want to engage learners. They want to use the principles of engagement, representation, action, and expression, because they've learned about it. It's instilled in them. I mean, it's what they've come to work with. So it is so important for our administrators to be on board with that. So I applaud the work. I've been trying to do that work myself here at San Joaquin County. So questions? So as you're in this year, you're approaching year 6 now, right?
Yeah, we're approaching the end of year 5.
Right. Okay. So approaching the end and thinking about next year. And I think that's what a lot of us are doing right now is we're thinking, well, it's getting close now. It's spring. We need to communicate to our districts, to our schools, the folks that we support. How's this going to look next year? Right. So now's really a perfect time to really putting that forward, right? And helping our schools see the need. So I'll stop talking if someone wants to interrupt.
I was going to say, Fred, that if there aren't any questions, we have 3 teacher leaders on who might be willing to share why they've joined the project and how it's impacted them.
That would be wonderful.
Josie, Jill, Andrea, any of you want to jump in there?
I can do it.
Okay.
All right. So my name is Andrea Conte, and I work at a integrated arts school in the county. It's a charter school. So this was like the perfect fit because I have a lot of tools in my classroom that are that were already in place that I didn't have. The intention wasn't quite there because I didn't know what I was working with. And so I was able to actually see, oh, this is what I'm using. This is how I should use it to be more effective. And now I'm using this everywhere. We're just organizing a field trip and my forms going to the parents are all UDL'd out. Just for some reason, it comes naturally. And their reading is like, oh, this looks so pretty. It's just attractive, blah, blah, blah. And it makes perfect sense. But the other thing that I see as a teacher leader, or it's not because it puts me in that position of like, oh, I get to lead, but I get to see other teachers work. I get to continue learning from them. And that is something that we all did when we did the student teaching, and we learned from those amazing teachers sometimes that showed us those strategies. And now I get to continue that. And it's like we lose that portion in our career. We stop looking at other teachers, how they teach sometimes. And now we're with the group of people that have the same goal. We all want to improve. We're talking the same language. We're all trying to do things together. And it makes me grow so much more. It reinforces what I believe. So to me, is the continuity of the program, no matter at what level you are, is so important because reinforces everything that I'm trying to do better here.
Thank you, Andrea. That's awesome.
You
Jill or Josie?
You need to watch your video. I saw Angela in the video. It was stellar.
Mm-hmm.
I can answer. There's a question in the chat that I can answer about how we stay motivated.
That'd be great,
In the
Josie.
rigorous process. I mean, I think for me, I'm in my 5th year now with the program. And I think, it's such an amazing collaborative process. We all work together really, really well, and it's so supportive. It really is the definition of a community of practice. And I think one of the best aspects of it is when we're doing the observations, that it's not evaluative, and we are going in as a team to support each other. Stop me. and like it can be a little bit taxing at times. Like there is a time commitment, but everybody that I've worked with so far has been fully invested. So I think, the motivation is hasn't been a difficult piece in my experience. And Steve is my coach. So I don't know if you have anything else to say about keeping ourselves motivated and keeping the team motivated. One thing that we do, that Steve and I do, is just try to connect base with our team periodically. So we have an observation maybe every other month, but we check in our off months and just make sure that everything's going okay. We review our lesson plans. We talk about what's working and what's not working. And another thing we do is we try not to put too much pressure on ourselves and on each other. And like when you're learning how to implement UDL, you really just start small. Like I think it can be very overwhelming, but if you just take a little piece of it and you say, you know, we want to apply this to a lesson or a part of a lesson, then you start kind of like building capacity to put it into everything you do.
I just want to second what Josie said and about motivation. Watching the teachers doing the observations is the absolute best. So we work in high schools. So we've been to Earl Jameson, which is our school that's connected to the juvenile hall. We've been in special ed math classes and watched UDL in action. We've been in general ed classes. We absolutely, I mean, that's the absolute best days of the year when we're in those classrooms. You start seeing how your classroom is just like this Earl Jameson classroom, and how a lot of the same strategies work, and how you know, we're all really connected. Like Andrea was saying, we all have the same goal. We all want to improve. We all want to get better. So our first observation is always a little nerve-wracking, you know, for the person who's going first. And then once that one's on, everyone's like, when is the next one? When is the next one? Who's up next? Who wants to do, you know, and we look and see what was successful about that lesson, and we try to replicate that. And then we also push them to say, okay, well, that's good. Let's try to replicate that. But what's something else that we can do to make it even better? So by the time we get to our third observation, there have been a couple that have come before, and we've seen some real growth. But that is the way that you stay motivated. And I think Andrea said it really well. We don't get enough opportunity, unless maybe it's a WASC year or something like that, to go into each other's classrooms and see the things that are going on, and the things that we forgot are like, oh my gosh, I used to do that, or that was what a great thing, or they do that in history, I could do that in English as well. So that's absolutely the best. So it's been a wonderful 5 years.
Thank you. That was Steve, who's one of our instructional coaches. And I think we're running out of time, but Jill, I wanted you just to have be able to say one thing. Go ahead.
Sure. It's my fourth year with the project, and I will say that motivation is really comes from the fact that we're all learning from each other. And we're kind of unique in the county in that we have several small school districts and maybe not as many resources as some of you across the state may have. So it's just a wonderful opportunity for us to come together and leverage our professional knowledge and share that in a way that in a lot of our individual districts we don't have. So, you know, we can turn to partners in other schools and say, well, what are you doing, you know, to help with this? And so it's not just the observations. We get a lot out of those observations, but then being able to talk to other professionals and learn from other professionals, and maybe have that collaboration of resources that we wouldn't otherwise have. It's incredibly valuable. So it's been a great process for us.
Wow, thank you so much. That was great learning. Pam and I would like to offer the opportunity for us to maybe have a 5-minute breakout session, just to randomly kind of talk about how implementation is going, any barriers you may be facing, and maybe some of your next steps with some of your peers, maybe meet a new friend. So we can do that for maybe about 5 minutes. Do you think, Pam?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and open rooms. And should you decide, you know, you'd rather reflect individually, you can stay in this main room and just turn your camera off. But otherwise, we do want to offer you the opportunity to connect and dialogue with your colleagues. So rooms are currently open. We'll set a timer for 5 minutes, and then we'll come back to close out with some updates and events.
Okay. Okay. Pam, do you want to pause the recording?